I was talking to someone and I said, drone warfare absolutely frightens the hell out of me. I'm a little freaked out about where our society is going. So I hope, this is what we pay taxes for. Like, guys, go protect our skies, okay?
Get ready for a new episode of KP Talks Dollars and Cents. Learn financial literacy and get real-time updates on all things housing, finance, and real estate. So let's get started. Here's your host, Kevin Perenio.
Hey, it's KP coming to you live from Corona, California. Well, I'm at the desk, and it will be my one and only time this week. We have a lot going on. It is an extremely busy week. We have our budget meetings tomorrow, which will be fun to go through for like 6 hours and plan for next year, but you got to do it. So I'm excited about that. But in the macro world, this week is as big as it gets. We had a week like this, the last Fed meeting, and this one seems to be crazier because we have the dot plot. So the Fed is meeting, and then on Wednesday, they'll have their press conference after they release the summary of economic projections, which I've been talking about ad nauseum, I know. But they have a chance here to reset the course of how many rates are expected based on recent inflation data. And so the language in the statement, but the questions, the Q&A will be important. So it could be market moving. And then, of course, we've got a ton of other data. I mean, we've got retail sales tomorrow. Home starts and permits are coming out this week. You've got existing home sales. We have the final reading for Q3 GDP, which I believe is 2.8%. It was the first read, the second read, and then they have a third and final read. I think they both were 2.8. So they would be 2.8. And then PCE on Friday, the Fed's preferred gauge of inflation, literally called the Fed deflator. So the personal consumption expenditure doesn't quite have as high a weighting on housing as a CPI, but as our good friends at MBS Highway, Dan and Barry, they just totally broke it down. And you could see that the number being replaced from a year ago was actually a little bit negative. So the numbers are supposed to go up. So we're supposed to see potentially a 3 handle on the core PCE. Maybe we see a 2.9. So the market could react to that. I am not a financial advisor. I am not responsible for your losses, only your profits. But we could see a little sell-off in the stock market this week based on the Fed's actions and the inflation. But it could be a buy-the-dip moment. There's still $6.5 trillion in money market accounts. Like literally people sitting around with cash and cash equivalents. And if the Fed cuts this week, which they should, there's over a 95% chance they'll do another 25 basis points. These lending rates and these checking account rates and all these rates that, that pay out interest are going to go down a little bit. So what do you do with your money? There's a lot of options, but I can't talk about them because I just can't talk about them. I'm not a licensed person, but I like to just generally talk about it. Okay, some very interesting news that came out last week. I read from Brian Chappell, who puts out the Potomac Partners newsletter. It's a great service. If you don't subscribe, I highly recommend it. There's some great data. Oh, by the way, before I get too much in the data, I totally forgot. I'm going to break it up. There you go. Look at that. Before it gets past the 3-minute mark, which people didn't tune out. This is it. If you want to sign up for the IMB, the Mortgage Banker Association, Independent Mortgage Bankers Show in Austin, Texas on January 27th, you have until the 18th, a day and a half or 2 days from, right now when this video is going out. For some of you who wake up in the morning, you got to register, and the savings are good. The hotel's sold out. So the JW Marriott where it's at is sold out. Don't worry. There's tons of awesome hotels in Austin, but it just goes to show you that there's going to be a lot of people there. And that's great to hear. I think people are excited about next year. So get ready, sign up, save some money. Don't wait. If you wait and procrastinate, your money will deteriorate. I just said that. So please get some savings. All right. CFPB said there are 1.8 million complaints this year, and mortgage was only 1% of them. That's it. So 80% was from consumer, reporting and consumer credit reporting. So imagine that. I wonder if anyone in our industry logged any complaints about credit reports. Although I will say, we have an awesome partner in Zactus that has helped us navigate. A little plug for them. I love them. Helped us navigate all the waters with all the craziness. Okay, so debt collection, credit cards was 7% and 4%. So out of all the complaints the CFPB got, and all the headlines you read about the CFPB, let's be honest, they really didn't hammer us that much. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with the CFPB in the next administration. But I mean, look, if 1% of complaints are mortgage, I think we're doing a good job as an industry, and we're policing ourselves. Now, another topic I wanted to bring up was it's very interesting. I was reading an article in Axios, which is a left-leaning newsletter, but great writers and content. And so, like, if you can exercise some EQ, emotional quotient, emotional intelligence, and actually read, like, both sides. If you do take sides, whatever, conservative, liberal, but there's some great data in some of these other, like if you only watch Fox News or only watch MSNBC or only, like you're missing out on some good journalism that's out there. And so anyway, I thought it was pretty cool about women's sports revenue expected to top $1 billion this year. And the NCAA women's final had higher ratings than the men's final. And, I thought that was pretty impressive. Of course, Caitlin Clark, I mean, what a wave she's created. Rookie of the year in the WNBA, which is like crushing attendance records, best records in 22 years. And she was on the cover of Time for Athlete of the Year. So thought that was pretty cool. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on, not just, Indiana Fever. Katie Ledecky, the most decorated Olympian ever in swimming for America. Simone Biles had her comeback story and got that all-around gold. I mean, there's so many different things in here I could go into, but, bottom line is women's sports rocking. But what's not rocking is women running committees in D.C. There were 3 women running committees. I believe that was in the House. And for the first time in 2 decades, there isn't a single female-run committee. 2 of those 3 women retired and did not run for re-election. So we can do better, D.C. What else is there? I took a couple notes. So this is earnings week. And what was interesting is FedEx reports on Thursday. And so we all ship and we all have, FedEx and UPS. Did you know that Amazon owns 110 aircraft? So, I mean, on their mission to make everything cheaper, like, why would we use someone else's Boeing? We'll have our own planes and we'll get the cost down as opposed to paying FedEx or UPS a little piece, which then obviously gets passed on to the consumer. Thought that was pretty fascinating to read. So interesting to see the guidance from FedEx. I've read some articles talking about how it's actually had an impact. Amazon being such a big online retailer. I mean, we know there's drones everywhere. I don't know where you live, but they're everywhere. I don't know what's going on. It's crazy. I was at our California MBA retreat in La Quinta at the beginning of the month. And I was talking to someone and I said, drone warfare absolutely frightens the hell out of me. Like that is in my opinion, the biggest threat to us as a society. I mean, don't go doom scrolling, but I can tell you the videos from the Ukraine and the way that both Russia and Ukraine use drones against each other, it's brutal. I mean, you look at Israel, the drone attack on Israel, and then Israel's defense force using it. I mean, drones are absolutely scary, and so I know there's a lot of great memes about the drones in the air, but I'm a little freaked out about where our society is going. So I hope this is what we pay taxes for. Like, guys, go protect our skies, okay? Anyway, so interesting to talk about Tesla real quick. I thought this was, you've got Amazon navigating, waters of, okay, we got to use FedEx and UPS, but at the same time we have our own planes. And so, and then it's like anyone that uses Apple has to pay a 30% fee. So why would Tesla create all these Starlink satellites in the sky to bring internet to us to then pay a fee to people that use an Apple device? Why don't they just make their own phone, which I've seen prototypes of that maybe they will. Did you know that Tesla's autopilot was stolen in 2019? Their entire interface and website was stolen by a Chinese company that also stole some stuff from Apple. So these engineers, they just take off and go copy us. But Tesla's not going to cut off that market because China's a big part of their market. So it's very interesting to watch not just the tariffs, but the technology wars that are going on and how it will shape and impact where we go forward in our disruptive world. And one last thing, have you ever heard of Ripple, XRP? It's up like 5x in the last couple months. It is a cryptocurrency. But don't freak out. Like Like when you say the word cryptocurrency, you just tune me out. It's just a ledger. It's just a blockchain ledger. Do you know the SWIFT system, the payment rails that payments are made cross borders around the world, could be replaced by Ripple? That's why it's ripping. So there's a lot of great new technology. I've been demoing technology. I had a 7:30 a.m., which was the last spot on the calendar available for a gentleman in Berlin for some AI today. So lots going on. We're on the forefront. Have a great week. Go Fed, go. Cheers. Hey, it's KP coming to you live from Newport Beach. We're at the Balboa Bay Resort and Club, and they have a drone show and the Christmas boat parade. So we got here right at 5:30. My wife's father and oldest brother are in from Detroit, where you know how cold it is, and promptly handed all four of my children a bunch of Detroit Lions gear. Anyway, we're out here. It's festive. It's good. I wanted to get the word out today before we go into the PCE report. That's a casino, by the way, Yamava. So I guess they paid to be up there. It is shaping up here. It's nice. It's holidays. It's about 57 degrees. So tons of boats with decorations. Bunch of people out there. Fed spoke yesterday, and the market sold off, and all kinds of good stuff to talk about. So before I do that, I just want to encourage my fellow IMBs, that's independent mortgage bankers. I want to encourage you to sign up for the MBA's IMB. So again, if you are an independent mortgage banker and you're one of those that doesn't really go to shows, this is your show. So, progress is possible without change. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, and that includes you not going to shows. So come out of your hole, January 27th. Make sure you come to the show. All right. So the Fed spoke. We had CPI this week. We've got PCE tomorrow. Or CPI and PPI last week. Existing home sales was good. 4.15 million annual rate. That's a win. Retail sales 0.7%. Most of that was from car sales. So a little bit of distortion in that reading. And we know that over 350,000 people left the workforce. So we've got some soft, we got some hot. We also had in the last CPI report last week, the first time in a long time, years and years and years, where the owner's equivalent rent actually went down. So by the largest margin month over month in a long time. That's a good sign for inflation. So, we trade stocks at high frequency, right? We do loans at high frequency. So the pace at which our economy is settling just isn't a high frequency. And the Fed is playing the long game. And, maybe we have to think about that as we, make our comments online and make our projections for next year. The GDP reading came out for Q3 is 3.1%. The economy is growing. So we have a strong economy with, I think 3.2 is the estimate for Q4. That 3.1% GDP read is up from 2.8. So that is strong. And I can't remember if it's the third and final read or if we get one more. There you go. There was a nice Empower event that the California NBA put on right over there at the Balboa Bay Resort in August. So for those familiar with Newport Beach. So some good news, some bad news. It's just going to take some time. I mean, we had a quarter in Q1 where inflation was going up and rates went up. Then we had two great quarters in a row where we had, insanely good rates, lowering rates, improving rates. And so, we might be in one of those quarters where inflation is ticking up a little bit. And then the next quarter, or maybe even two, we may see lowering inflation. So, we're going to watch watch the numbers, obviously, and be data dependent. The Fed on their dot plot, which is the big thing that came out of that, they made their projections. Jerome Powell had a statement. I listened to it in the Q&A. And basically, they said we're going to get to 2% in 2026. So this mythical 2% number that was thrown out 40 years ago when pressed, what's your target, which the Fed has already said he's totally comfortable with a core PCE between 2 and 2.5, which tomorrow might be as high as 3%. Maybe it's 2.9%. We have a lot of things that are going to affect inflation and the economy next year that are still unknown. The Fed doesn't know, we don't know, nobody knows. And so, there's a budget that's being trying to be passed, which there was a new version that came through the House today. The first one got rejected. It's too high. And then a second one went through. It got rejected. So as of right now, Thursday evening, there still is no continuing resolution. So the Trump administration has to deal with, cutting costs, budget, the TikTok ban that takes place, January 19th. The CEO from ByteDance, the owner of TikTok, was in Mar-a-Lago this week. The longshoremen strike at all of our ports, which could totally impact GDP. That kind of like continuing resolution, if you will, expires January 15th. So this new administration doesn't even take office until the 20th. So anything going on right now is, setting up, I don't know, throwing a turd in the lawn of the Trump administration, or, potentially setting some things aside, like a budget continuing resolution, if it gets passed here through March. And so there's a lot of work to do in that first 90 days. So here's some things to think about of how the 10-year Treasury can improve, okay? And it really has to do with other central banks around the world. The EU did not cut. The EU cut. The UK did not cut. Mexico cut 25 basis points. Bank of Japan stayed the same at 25 basis points, did not raise. And all these countries either have weakening GDPs, weakening economies, or stable, not growing economies. China's slowing. They're having to put record stimulus out there. And they're going to have to lower their rates. And that actually puts downward pressure on U.S. Treasuries. And, so right now, in the moment, the Fed said, hey, we're only doing 2 rate cuts next year instead of the 4 that we said the last dot plot. And, a year ago, they said 6. So we've had 4 25 basis point cuts. They're saying 2 more 25s this year and 2 more 25s in 2026. It's all subject to change. There's a lot of money and velocity of money that's flowing around treasuries, other economies, institutional money, stock market, our GDP. I'll tell you, don't bet against America and don't fight the Fed. But they are taking the long game, and so we have to as well. And what's good about a slower burn, let's say we took Morgan Stanley's 350 10-year Treasury yield target in the middle of the summer next year in 2025. So let's call it 6-7 months from now. That's 2 quarters, right? So purchase business is going to be up. Existing homes and home sales in the month of November in California was the highest it's been in 17 years. Of course, it's one of the slowest, it had the highest increase in 17 years. So we know there's pent-up demand. We know people got to put a roof over their head. Deployment, diamonds, diapers, debt, divorce, downsizing, death. We know that is not going to stop. So people are going to continue to have to buy a home, regardless of the price. And there's some condos in Miami that are sinking. So take some condos and some South Florida inventory off the market, and you have even less supply. So unfortunately, the Fed does not move as fast as we want them to. I guess the drone show is over, and the boats are raging. All the boats are raging. So, some pretty interesting facts I'll throw out that I heard. There's this Social Security Act, Transfer Act that's going through Congress right now. There's a House trigger lead reform bill that passed the House. That's big. So that could happen. The Social Security one is interesting. Let's say you work for the government for 25 years. So you work for the government, there's no payroll tax. Then you work for the private sector for 10 years. Your income for those first 25 years, according to the Social Security Administration, was 0. So you only worked 10 years at an employer that paid your payroll tax, even though you worked 35 years. So when you retire, your Social Security benefit is distorted and higher and paid by taxpayer dollars, including that 25-year salary of the government employee is paid by taxpayer dollars in pretty much an unfair manner. And so hopefully, that act gets looked at, because Social Security Administration is already, one of our biggest unfunded liabilities. Between Social Security and Medicare, Medicaid, we're at like 75 trillion. So that was an interesting hack I saw. AI is for real. Listen to this mind-blowing stat, literally mind-blowing stat. Google has a Willow chip, a Willow project they're working on. Willow. They created a chip that in 5 minutes, this is the comparison of how many calculations it can do. 10 septillion calculations in 5 minutes. How big is 10 septillion? It's 700 billion times more than the age of the universe of 13.5 billion years. So how do you even set up a problem for that thing to solve? Just setting up and writing the problem would take forever. So our compute power and our quantum computing is going to continue to bring noise. It's going to bring efficiency, our capacity to a high level that we can't even fathom. I mean, think about that. 100 billion times the age of the universe in 5 minutes. That's like, it's insane. So, there's a lot going on that's good. Labor's still softening, just at a slow pace, which is good. And inflation is softening at a slow pace, which is really good. And so we're going to continue to watch it and watch how the Fed reacts to being data dependent, because at the end of the day, they don't really know how everything's going to go. Hope you have a wonderful, happy holidays. I will get a video out next Monday, and we'll get one last look here at the boat parade if you want to see it. Y'all have a good one. Cheers.
You've been listening to KP Talks Dollars and Cents, a top-rated show for those who want to learn about the economy and mortgage environment. Tune in each week for more episodes, and please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Kevin Perenio does not render or offer to render personalized investment or tax advice through KP Talks Dollars and Cents. The information provided is for informational purposes only and does not constitute financial, tax, investment, or legal advice. For more info, follow KP Talks Dollars and Cents on all of our social channels.